So we were just understanding a little bit more about an increase in the money supply as a result of Fed actions, and kind of how that would result in a change in the aggregate demand curve, because we would be making the availability of more money, right? There, in essence, it would be at any given price level, it would be increasing. It would be increasing the demand of goods and services that would be allowed as a result of kind of changes in consumption and investment that we were thinking about there. What I want to do is, we kind of stopped at that, and I just want to kind of simplistically finish this off as we think about it and throw around a little bit more terminology that you will often hear. So I've kind of cleaned those graphs up, and now here we're looking at this. This is the exact same thing. So we're looking at the Federal Reserve increasing the money supply, and I just want to kind of use a few of the terminology, a little bit more of the terminology that you often hear in, the Wall Street Journal or New York Times, that you'll see in other economics texts, or that you'll come across in business kind of all the time. So this is also discussed as expansionary Fed policy, right? Expansionary. This is often discussed as well as, you'll sometimes hear this as easy money. And it's called easy money, right? Because in essence, they're increasing the money supply. It's making it easier to have cash on hand. We wanted to think through kind of what are the things that are happening here. So what did we say? This would be a shift from money supply 1, right, to money supply 2, which I'll just mark here in this orange color, money supply 2. And as a result, that moves us to this new interest rate. So we believe, right, that what would happen here is that we would see a decrease in the interest rate. That decrease in the interest rate could be what the Federal Reserve is targeting, right? So they could be targeting a decrease in the interest rate. As a result, they want to increase the money supply, and they do that by buying bonds as a way of thinking through how that would affect the economy. So then we also want to kind of think through, well, what else would happen on the economy? And we had said that, well, as a result of this, what's actually happening? Well, you have more money, right? And at any given price level, right? So what do we think through? At any given level of prices, which is what this money demand is, at any given level of prices, you would have more money available to you. And so what are you likely to do? Well, if you're a business, you're likely to invest some of that money. If you were an individual, you are likely to consume some more of those dollars, right? You're likely to go out and purchase more goods and services. And as a result, we would see this shift in the aggregate demand curve. And so I'll kind of shift this out here. We'll use that same color there. And we would see this new aggregate demand 2. Before we just were going through to make sure we understood why that changes. Now we can think through what is also generally thought of as what happens as a result of expansionary expansionary monetary policy. And so what is that? Well, let me just change the color here, and we can see that in the short run, we also would expect to see this, right? We would move from this point right here to this point here, which in the short run, we should see an increase in output in the economy. And we should also see kind of this, or at least it's generally this model would tell us that expansionary fiscal policy would also give us some short-run increases in the price level as well. In essence, right, what's another way of saying this? Well, that we would see increases in inflation. And this is kind of the model that is often talked about. You'll see this in political discourse. You'll see this in newspapers. You see this all over the place when it comes to business. And sometimes businesses will be concerned, or individuals will be concerned in the economy, that we are looking at expansionary monetary policy that would then have the result of stimulating the economy in the short run. So we should see an increase in real output, right, in GDP, which we also think, we generally think that's a good thing, obviously, in the economy, right? We would see faster growth in the economy. And you can think about when we have a depression, or when we have a recession like we did in 2007 and 2008, the result has been the Federal Reserve has greatly increased the monetary supply, and they have greatly decreased, right? We've also seen very low interest rates in the economy. So all of this kind of checks out and makes sense. And what a lot of people get concerned about is that, well, we should also, as a result of this, these models would indicate that we would also see inflation as a result of this. We have seen, right, we've kind of seen normal levels of inflation coming out of this this recession, kind of 2007 and 2008. and then the 5 or 6, 7 years that we've had in recovery from this. But we have not seen really gigantic levels of inflation across the economy. This kind of concern has been out there, but it has not really been it hasn't really materialized all that much. And so I think that these are important things to kind of draw distinctions as well, things that we expect from the model. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we will always see that. So there could be some other effects that are happening. There might be some sort of shift in the short run aggregate supply that would be that would maybe be kind of decreasing this change, right, as a result, or we might be thinking about some different things that might be happening in the economy that would keep this inflation from really being much higher than maybe the model would anticipate. But I just throw this out there because you see this in the news all the time. You see people who are very concerned about inflation when we have expansionary policy with the Federal Reserve. And the models would indicate that that would be the case. So far, we have not really seen that to a huge extent. However, it could definitely happen at a later date. That's a little bit of a question mark still in the economy. I'll just kind of say a few other things that often come up in this discussion. We talked about the reasons here. There's a couple reasons. We know that there could be an increase in investment of businesses because there's more cash out there for them to be able to invest in. And we also said that there could be an increase in consumption as well. There's something that is often discussed with consumption, right? And that is the marginal propensity to consume. So marginal propensity to consume. And it is often kind of MPC. It is often kind of given by this acronym here. The marginal propensity to consume is in essence how much of every dollar will consumers spend, right? How much will they consume versus how much will they save, right? It's basically the inverse of the savings rate. And so if we think about it, let's say that consumers spend, they have an MPC, right? Marginal propensity to consume of 70%, which means that for every additional dollar, they will consume 70%. So they will take 70% of that dollar, 70 cents on the dollar, and spend it on goods and services, which would be an increase in this aggregate demand. And maybe 30% of it or so they would save, right? They would take that money and they would put it in some sort of investment vehicle, right, or something of that nature. And that's really, you can kind of think about those kind of differing effects that we could have on the economy as well. I'll leave it at that. I'm not going to go into any further detail there. Just wanted to focus a little bit more on kind of expansionary monetary policy. If the marginal propensity to consume isn't changing, it still doesn't mean, right, consumption can still, in essence, investment can still increase. Consumption can still increase even if kind of our ability or the rate of which we are consuming doesn't change itself. And that's all flowing through kind of this liquidity preference model that we've been discussing.